Hello folks, Dick Fairburn here, talking about fighting rifle cartridges. Things that we use for self-defense, home defense, ranch defense, whatever need you might have. I've covered the U.S. cartridges. Started with the 5.56, 223 Remington, the most common, the most popular here in the country. Then I went to the 300 Blackout, the second most common caliber, generally chambered in an AR platform. The full battle rifles, 7.62 NATO, 7.62 by 51, 308 Winchester. If you need a big rifle, that's a great fighting rifle caliber to have. And last time I talked about the little guy in the mix, the 30 US carbine. The weakest of our carbine cartridges during World War II in Korea, but with the right ammunition can be a pretty effective home defense or self-defense carbine. So now we're going to look across the pond. 7.62 by 39, Soviet, Russians now. Is this a good fighting rifle cartridge for us in our country? Stick around, we'll talk about it. Our mainstream media in the United States likes to use the term assault rifle, and they use it to describe AR-15 platform rifles in the hands of civilians especially. They're not assault rifles. The accepted definition by gun experts, the accepted definition of an assault rifle is an intermediate-sized rifle cartridge that can be fired from a weapon in one of two forms, semi-auto or full auto. Select fire. The AR-15s that we have as civilians here in this country are not select fire. They only have semi-auto mode. So they really do not meet the definition of an assault rifle. But they do have that intermediate cartridge. If you put the switch on them, then I guess I'm okay with them being called an assault rifle. But there was never any doubt with the AK-47. This was intended for one thing: launching massive amounts of lead downrange in a massed attack, which was one of the #1 tactics the Soviets used in World War II. So, 7.62 by 39. Its history dates back to 1943. That's when they started developing an intermediate-sized cartridge. But it did not get done during World War II. It was adopted in 47. Gee, guess that's why they call it the AK-47. It was used in the AK-47, the later AKM, and also in both RPD and RPK light machine guns. So this has been in use since 47. It's still in use by Russia and a lot of the former Soviet bloc countries. It is unquestionably the #1 fighting rifle cartridge in the world. There are more AKs out there, estimated to be over 20 million of them made in various countries. And they show up on every battlefield we see nowadays. Semi-auto versions of those AKs have been imported into the U.S. for quite a few years. And if you look back to the predecessor of the AK-47 was the SKS carbine, a wood-stocked, kind of a semi-fixed magazine, semi-auto, so not really an assault rifle. Some had permanently attached bayonets. They came in a bewildering array of variations. But in the early 90s, a lot of those cheap SKS carbines were being imported into this country. And there was a time when for less than $200, you could get an SKS carbine and 1,000 rounds of communist-grade ammunition to feed it. That's a pretty effective little home defense or ranch defense rifle. I wonder how many SKS carbines are buried with their case of ammunition somewhere out there in the country by preppers, because that was almost too good a deal to pass up. And a friend of mine went through several of those SKS carbines. He was kind of a self-gunsmith. And he said if you would simply recrown the barrel, that a lot of times their accuracy was almost startling. He said a lot of times those barrels were beat up on the end, so he would just kind of grind them square, recrown them, and he said some of them turned out to be very accurate little carbines. The AK system is still pretty popular here. It is, I would say, the number 2 behind our AR platform. Where does it fit power-wise? There's no question that this round was influenced by the Sturmgewehr 44 that the Germans developed at the end of World War II. And their cartridge was a 7.9 by 33. Shorter, less powerful. The M2 carbine with select fire capability might have been the first assault rifle by a few months before the STG-44. The 8mm short of the Germans and the 30 carbine are real similar in terms of power. They throw a little bit heavier bullet, a little bit less velocity. The AK-47, which had the benefit of looking at those two cartridges, when it came out in 1947, it's a substantial power level above the 30 carbine and the 7.9 by 33. So it stands up there with more power than either of those two predecessor cartridges. In fact, it almost equals the new darling of the United States, the 300 Blackout. 300 Black is a little bit less powerful, but they're pretty similar in many ways. The Black was designed to send subsonic bullets, in other words, under 1,100 feet per second, but very heavy, 190 to 240 grain bullets. But when you load it with supersonic loads of, say, 125 grain bullet comparing to the 123 of the Soviet round, they're pretty comparable. Probably the closest is our old 30-30. 30-30 is a bit more powerful than the 7.62 by 39, but when you load them in equivalent barrel lengths with equivalent bullet weights, the 30-30 beats it by maybe 100, maybe 150 feet per second at the most. So it's not a round to be trifled with. 7.62 by 39 has a good reputation around the world as a man-stopper. And that is partially because of the way the Soviets build their bullets. Let's just say they're not built for accuracy. Sometimes they have a hollow point. The core does not go all the way to the front of the jacket, especially in the 5.45 variation. Those bullets, when Dr. Marty Fackler was shooting them into ballistic gelatin, and he was most interested in those because those are the most common rounds that are hitting American service members. So they wanted to know what they had to do to treat those wounds. These bullets very often will go in, they will yaw severely a few inches into the gelatin and then turn sometimes even 90 degrees. And he said one variation of a 7.62 by 39 he found from one of the Soviet countries, he said would very predictably go in about 4 or 5 inches, turn 90 degrees, exit the gelatin block, hit the wall of the shooting range, and he said then land on the ground and it's still spinning due to gyroscopic stability. And he said every once in a while they were spinning so fast they would actually rise up on their nose and spin for a little while and then fall over. And he said they spent one whole afternoon doing that because it was kind of neat to watch them hit the wall and hit the floor and spin around like that. So part of their effectiveness is the fact that they're rather poorly made. And that keeps them from being stable when they go through a human target and they do more damage. The original M16 with a 1 in 14 barrel twist was known to have much of that same effect. Even now, the 55 grain full metal jacket load for the ARs, the M193, it will yaw, it will invert, and in the process it typically breaks and kind of blows into fragments. So full metal jackets are not necessarily just a straight drill through. It depends on their caliber and how they're made internally. So, the AK round is a very serious round. I don't have much experience with the 5.45 by 39, kind of the answer to our 5.56 cartridge. It's only about 5,000 smaller bullet diameter. It came out in the AK-74 in 1974. And as I said, that 56 grain bullet, it's traveling about 2,900 feet per second. It is inherently unstable. And so it is known for creating some pretty nasty wounds. I don't pretend to know all the variations of those Soviet weapons. I know that many of them, even the newer ones that they're making, a lot of times they're still making in 7.62 by 39. But they seem to be using the 5.45 as well, and I don't know country-wise or unit-wise how that works. The people in the United States who really like the 7.62x39, who really like the AK-47, AKM variations of carbines, in semi-auto, of course, if they like them, they love them, in my experience. They love the legend of reliability that the AK-47 has. And, I mean, the AK-47 is featured on the flags of a couple of countries. There are more AK-47s in the world than there probably are M16s, AR-15s, 30 carbines all added together. Supposedly over 20 million have been made in the various communist countries. The Soviets, today's Russians still use this round. They still have some modern variations of carbines coming out, and they're still using this cartridge. I think part of the popularity in the United States was the novelty of having our enemy's weapon system, which I think we should be familiar with them by all means. And the fact that for 20 or 30 years ago, you could get ammunition for about 22 caliber prices. So you could shoot a lot of this stuff. You could go to the range and burn up a lot of rounds, shooting cans, shooting bottles, shooting steel plates, whatever it was you wanted to play with. And I'm not making light of them. It's an effective cartridge. It's an effective weapon system. It is, in my experience, not even close to the accuracy level you will get in just a run-of-the-mill AR-15. And with a good AR-15, you can easily get sniper-grade performance, where this thing is not going to be a sniper round. There are some U.S.-made variations of the AK. They're using our kind of rifle-building technology in them, and I'm told they're getting some really excellent accuracy out of them. They're pretty expensive. If you got to go buy your fighting rifle, this is my opinion only, I wouldn't buy this cartridge. I think I'd buy the 5.56 and never look back. For $500 or $600 on sale, you can get a pretty decent AR-15 platform. It will be almost as reliable, maybe as reliable as the AK-47. It will be more accurate. The ammunition will be more readily available. Although this stuff was extremely available, but it's dwindling down now. And, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I don't like the damn thing. I've shot them a fair amount. I think at 50 to 100 yards, they're effective carbines. I just don't like the ergonomics of them. And maybe that's because I cut my teeth on an AR platform, an M16. If you've got one and you like it, God bless you. If you want to go get one and use it, it'll do a fantastic job for you. It's just not my cup of tea. Next, I'm going to talk about pistol caliber carbines. And these run the gamut from 9mm Luger rounds, handgun rounds in a carbine, up to perhaps 44 Magnum revolver rounds. That'll hit both ends of the spectrum, I believe. They can be very effective for home defense and personal defense. They can be reasonably priced, and you may already have something in the house that works. So that's the next topic we're going to cover. I want to thank you for watching these videos. My goal with these videos is to impress upon you that if you're going to be prepared to fight with a gun, you need more than a handgun. Now, the handgun will always be number one choice because we've got it with us. You got one in your pocket all the time if you want a small pistol like that. But Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, Army Lieutenant Colonel, said it best. Taking a rifle to a gunfight is like taking a chainsaw to a knife fight. Others have said that the primary purpose of your pistol is to fight your way to your rifle, and then you can really fight. Rifles make a heck of a difference in our personal safety. I don't know where this country's going, but I don't think it's going a good direction. If you don't have a good rifle, a fighting rifle that you can use to protect your home and your family, then I think you should consider that. And I hope I'm giving you some good information to use along the way. I appreciate the number of views and comments that I'm getting from these articles. It's really pumping my channel up good, and I thank you for that. So I ask you to be safe out there, be prepared for whatever the world will bring, and we'll see you on the next video. Okay, we got them both here now. You ready? Bud got one. Ginger got one. Oh, she missed it. She usually gets them, doesn't she, Bud?
Okay, girl, last one. You ready? You ready? Yeah! That's all there is till next time.